There is a profound difference between loudness and strength. We often mistake the two, don't we? The loudest voice in the room is often the most fragile. True confidence whispers. It doesn't roar. This is a story about that very whisper. It's about Maya, whose strength was found not in her words, but in her dignified silence. And her husband, Ryan, who believed his voice was a weapon. Their stage was a family courtroom, heavy with unspoken grief. Maya sat with quiet dignity. Ryan, restless and brimming with certainty. And across the aisle, Ryan was about to prove her case for her.
As Maya's lawyer began to lay out her arguments, the tension in the courtroom was almost tangible. Suddenly, Ryan erupted, his voice slicing through the stillness like a blade.
That's a lie. She's twisting everything. She's incompetent. How can she be trusted with our children's future? You're painting me as the villain, but you're ignoring the truth. She's weak, Your Honor. She can't handle the pressure of real life, let alone raising kids on her own.
The outburst was a blow, echoing off the courtroom walls. Maya flinched, her shoulders tensing, but she forced herself to steady her breathing. She'd been here before, weathered these storms, and she knew she had to hold her ground. She'd heard this voice 1,000 times before. Accusations, belittling, the same cycle repeating. But this time, she wasn't alone. Judge Markham didn't react with anger or impatience. She simply raised her hand, a calm authority in her gesture, and motioned for Maya's lawyer to sit down.
Mr. Holt, you seem to have a lot to say. The court is prepared to listen. Please continue. This is your opportunity to speak.
Ryan saw this as validation, a sign that the judge was finally hearing his side. He straightened, mistaking the judge's patience for agreement, not realizing the trap he was walking into.
I'm the one who works 60 hours a week. I come home, the house is a mess, bills unpaid. I'm the only responsible adult here, Your Honor. I had to take over all the finances. She's like a child. I can't trust her with anything important, not even the simplest tasks.
He spoke with conviction, his words tumbling out in a rush, as if he could convince the room by sheer force. But Judge Markham just listened, her pen moving quietly, her face unreadable. Ryan believed he was seizing control, finally making his case. But in his eagerness, he was only revealing the depth of his anger and resentment. In that moment, the courtroom saw him not as a victim, but as the man he truly was.
Tell me more about the finances, Mr. Holt. How did that work? Narrator. Ryan mistook the judge's silence for agreement, blind to how he was being perceived.
I had her salary deposited into an account I control. I give her a weekly allowance, cash for groceries and the kids. It's the only way to ensure our money isn't wasted.
And if she needs more? For a doctor's visit? Narrator. He said it without shame, as if it were normal.
She has to ask me. I decide if it's necessary. It's called fiscal responsibility. Honestly, it's better this way. It saves us from arguments.
He truly believed he was the rational one. The courtroom was silent, the truth laid bare. Maya's strength was in her stillness. Each word Ryan uttered built the walls of his own prison. He painted himself as controlling, dismissive, and arrogant.
Let's talk about communication, Mr. Holt. How do you and Maya make decisions together?
I do the research, I make the final call. She gets emotional, I have to be the clear-headed one.
The courtroom's tension grew heavier. Even Ryan's lawyer looked away, knowing this was a disaster.
So, to be clear, you control all the income, your wife has no access to funds, you make all major decisions, and you interrupt her in court because you believe your voice is more important. Is that accurate?
For the first time, Ryan hesitated. The words, when laid out plainly, sounded colder. The judge's summary was damning. The silence was telling. Judge Markham turned to Maya, his gaze steady and expectant, signaling that the moment for her to speak had finally arrived. The courtroom, filled with a tense hush, seemed to hold its breath.
Mrs. Holt, I'd like to hear from you. Please, share your side with the court.
Maya took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly as she steadied herself. Her voice, though soft, rang with a quiet determination that filled the room.
My husband is not a bad man. He has his faults, as we all do, but he is not cruel by nature. He is just a loud one. His words often drown out my own, and his temper fills the house. For years I tried to be heard, but my voice became silence. I learned to keep my thoughts to myself, to avoid conflict, to keep the peace for our children. He says I am not good with money, that I make mistakes, that I cannot be trusted with our finances. The truth is, I was a bookkeeper for over a decade before we married. I know how to manage money, how to balance a budget, how to make every dollar count. I managed our budget until he took over. It wasn't about responsibility. It was about control. He wanted to decide what I could and could not do, even with the smallest things. When I had no money, I had no freedom. I felt trapped, unable to make choices for myself or for my children. I couldn't even take the children to see my sister without asking for gas money. Every outing, every small purchase required his approval.
Her calm, factual testimony stood in stark contrast to Ryan's tirade earlier. Where he had shouted, she spoke with measured words, each one carefully chosen. She spoke of her love for her children, her desire for a home where every voice was heard, where laughter and kindness could flourish without fear. She was not weak, she was resilient. Years of quiet endurance had forged a strength within her that was now impossible to ignore. Maya's truth needed no embellishment. Her honesty was her shield, her story a testament to her courage. Her power was in her honesty, in her willingness to finally speak, to let her voice be heard after so long. The room felt her strength. Even those who had doubted her before now saw her in a new light. The silence was now respect. In that moment, Maya's quiet strength spoke louder than any outburst ever could. When Maya finished speaking, the silence that followed was not just empty. It was filled with a deep, collective respect. Every eye in the courtroom was on her, and for a moment, even the air seemed to pause, acknowledging the courage it took for her to share her truth. Judge Markham turned his gaze to Ryan. The arrogance that once defined Ryan's posture had vanished, replaced by a humbled, almost vulnerable expression.
Mr. Holt, in your attempt to expose your wife's supposed weakness, you have only managed to reveal your own shortcomings. You seem to believe that control is the same as care, and that raising your voice somehow makes your arguments more valid, but that is not the case. The evidence you have provided, both in words and actions, is more than sufficient for this court to see the truth. A true partnership is built on dialogue, on listening and understanding, not on one person dominating the conversation. A family should be a chorus of voices, each one valued, not a solo performance where only one is heard. You silenced your partner, not to protect your family, but to shield your own ego from discomfort and challenge. You may have provided material things, but you have left your home emotionally barren, a place where love and understanding could not grow. Such an environment is not suitable for children, who need safety, warmth, and emotional support above all.
The ruling was swift and decisive, leaving no room for doubt or debate. Maya was granted sole custody of her child, her relief evident as she embraced her daughter in the courthouse hallway. Ryan was ordered to attend counseling and allowed only supervised visitation, a chance for him to reflect and perhaps change.
True strength, the judge concluded, is not measured by how loudly you speak, but by how carefully you listen to those you love.
The gavel came down with a resounding finality, sealing the verdict. The truth had been spoken, and the entire courtroom seemed to exhale, as if a great weight had been lifted. In that moment, Maya's quiet strength shone brighter than any words. Her silence had become her shield, while Ryan's voice, once so forceful, had become his undoing. As court adjourned, Maya shed a single tear, not of sadness, but release. Ryan stood frozen, realizing his own weakness had been revealed. This story is more than a courtroom drama. It's a reminder. True power is found in respect, in listening, in valuing every voice. The world is full of noise, but strength is found in quiet moments of connection. Maya's victory is for every silenced voice. The lesson: the deepest rivers flow with the least sound. Listen more than you speak. That is where true power lives. What's something people don't know about stories? They never truly end. There's always a new adventure waiting for you. Just pick your next tale and I'll meet you there. Subscribe to the Story Circle and let me know which story I should tell next in the comments.